Hi everyone, welcome back to Learn Pega by Practice. So today in this video I'll be explaining you how to enable or how to configure SSO in Pega using an OAuth.com as an identity provider. So there are many other identity providers. So I'm using OAuth because it's a free and you can play around to understand how to configure SSO and so on. So in the Wikipedia, there is a sequence diagram which I'll be just a quick overview on what is um, so how the SAML authentication works. So here service provider corresponds to Pega, user agent corresponds to your browser, and identity provider corresponds to OAuth.com, the OAuth.com, which I'm using for our explanation. So once the user sends a request, once the user hits the SSO URL on Pega. Pega based on the URL, Pega would redirect the user to identity provider. There is a redirect request which is sent to your browser and the browser sends a fresh request to the identity provider. The identity provider based so identity provider once it receives the login request, it'll it'll display the it'll display login login UI requesting for the user credentials. Once the identity provider successfully verifies the user based on the based on the credentials entered by the user, it'll send an SAML response to browser and it'll ask the browser to redirect and send the same SAML response to Pega. So once Pega receives the SAML token, so you can call it as a token. So once the token is received by Pega, Pega will validate the token using the certificate which is available within Pega to verify that this request is coming from the identity provider. And hence, once it is successfully able to validate the token along based once it is successfully able to validate the token, it will display the dashboard. Okay, so there is a name ID in which the operator ID will be available, so it will use that to understand which operator to use and hence it will display the UI to browser. Okay, so this is the high level. I'll not be covering more on SAML, so you can go through you can actually browse for the videos to understand how the SAML authentication works, but I'll be covering more on hands-on to understand how to configure and test SSO. Okay, so you can create an account, login. So you hit this oauth.com URL and there is two options, sign in and login. So I've already created an account, so I'll be using that account to login. So if at all if you don't have a login account, so you can just sign up. So let me log into oauth.com. Okay, so this is the dashboard. So there are multiple other configurations. So let click on this application and create an application. So name it as Pega SSO. So there are multiple options. Just since Pega is a web-based application, so you can just select this regular web-based application and click on create. So now an application is created within OAuth or the OAuth identity provider. So now we have to configure this application. Now we have to enable this SAML single sign-on authentication on this particular Pega SSO application. Click on this add-on and then there is SAML to web app. Just click on this URL. So now we have to configure different things in this UI. So now let's log in. So to give this URL, so log into personal edition. Okay, so go click on this records, click on the system admin and click on Okay, so I've already created one, so let me delete it. Okay, so click on this authentication service, click on and create a new authentication service. So choose authentication type as SAML 2.0. Just give a name as SSO. So now we have to give give SSO as the authentication service alias. So we need this particular URL, assertion consumer service URL. So just copy this URL and then paste it in the application callback URL. Okay, so then so we'll not be any copying any doing any configurations. So let's just we'll proceed ahead. Click on this enable to enable SSO. Okay, so now there's a click on this usage tab. On this usage tab, you have an option to download metadata. Click copy this metadata, the downloaded metadata file, and then you have to upload this metadata file in authentication service. So in the authentication service, you have a link called import IDP metadata. Click on it via file and then select the downloaded IDP metadata. Okay, the various things are available over here, and in the so let's say for so you need to select by default a name identifier and the subject is used to identify the user. Let's leave it as it is and click on this enable. So if at all if that operator ID which is there in that particular field, if it is not available, we might have to create it on the fly, right? So we need a model operator. So let's use the same operator which I have. So let's delete this. This is not required. So let's use the model. So let's go to the organization. So I have my operator. So just I'll use this operator as the model operator. So for your practice, you can create your own operator and then give that operator as part of the authentication service. Okay, so now, okay, I'm just giving that operator, giving Pega trainer 12 as a model operator. Then you need to disable the certificate. You need to disable this request signing because otherwise we have to configure the certificates and so on. Let's disable signing from Pega, and then you have to give some history. Okay, so it's successfully saved now. So quick check. Okay, so all good. So now you can actually copy this URL, SSO URL. So we have configured SAML, SAML app in the identity provider, that is the OAuth, and we have we have configured the single sign-on in Pega. So now, in order to successfully test this, we need an operator, a single sign-on operator ID. Okay, so for this, then switch back to the OAuth Manage portal. Here you would have an option called Users and Roles. So click on this Users. Okay, so click on this Create. Just give an email address for which you wanted to use for testing, and then a password. So keep the user password authentication, select the user authentication password, user name password authentication as the option, and then create the user. Okay, so now we have the user ID which we can use for testing SSO. Okay, so just copy it somewhere so that you can use it for testing. So let's test the SSO. Click on this incognizant window and then enter the SSO URL, which you can find it in this studio. So this is the SSO URL, copy it, and then in the incognizant window which you have opened, just hit that URL. So now what Pega does is it will redirect you to the identity provider, which is our OAuth. Okay, so use this user ID with the new user ID which we have created. So we are able to successfully log in. So just to cross verify. Okay, so now if you see this, the ID is something different. So let's say if we want to if we want the if you want to make sure that the whatever ID which gets created in Pega, if it has to be same as the email address, then we have to make some configuration changes um, at the IDP side, the IDP method, also the our OAuth dashboard. So switch back to OAuth dashboard, go back to your applications, then click on the Pega SSO application which we recently created, and click on this add-on, and then go back to your SAML web app. So here, so we have to make few changes. So okay, so before we make some changes, we need to understand how does it Pega understand what is the SAML in name ID and so on. So now to understand, just click on this debug, and then it will generate an SAML. So this is our SAML response which will be sent to Pega. So if you scroll down, if you notice that name ID is something OAuth 0 pipe symbol and then 5 EB and so on. So this is what will be used by Pega, and if you see the configurations which we have set, so use the name identifier in the subject to create the operator ID, and that's the reason why Pega creates uh, the operator in this way, that whatever we mentioned, so OAuth hyphen pipe symbol 5 and so on. So let's say if you want, now our motto is to change that user ID to reflect email address. So let's say in our so switch back to your OAuth OAuth portal, manage OAuth portal. So here we want to we want to change it to email address. For this, what we have to do is we have to uncomment this line, and then in this there is an option called email address. I just uncomment that email address, and uh, this close bracket, and then click on save. So three things which you have to uncomment: name identifier probes. In that, there is an option called email address. Just uncomment that, and then uncomment the close bracket. So with this change, click on the save. So we wanted to test if whether the email address will be sent as the name identifier. So for that, you just click on this debug and then scroll down to notice that, oh, see, the name identifier now is reflecting you the email address. Okay, with this change, now when I log in, Pega will use the email address which is coming as name identifier will be used by Pega to create an operator ID. Okay, if it doesn't exist, if it is existing, it will use the same operator ID. So let's go back. So let's log out. So logout will not work. So that's fine. So I'll explain you how to fix that. So let's try to log in. So go back to your Pega portal, and then so so you just copy this URL, notepad. Okay. So this is the SSO URL. Again, so you have to open a new incognizant window session and then hit the SSO URL. So with enter the same test user ID which we created a few minutes back. Okay, so now you're able to successfully log in. Let's try to see what is the operator ID details. So if you see now, the email address which we had given, that is used as your that is used as our um, you know operator ID within Pega. So now if you see logout, when you click on logout, it doesn't work. Okay, for this you have to make some configuration changes again in the OAuth portal. Okay, so switch back to OAuth portal, click on the OAuth portal, and then you have to make few changes. One, you have to uncomment the logout callback URL. So remove this, okay, and then remove the binding. So by default it is HTTP post, but Pega, for Pega it needs to be HTTP redirect. Okay, so just copy this. So you will be finding this details, all these details in the uh, YouTube video itself. In the descriptions you would be finding this, all these details, so you can use it later. Okay, so copy this binding and change, instead of HTTP post you have to change it to HTTP redirect. Okay, and then there is an a logout URL. So this logout URL, actually you can find it as part of your authentication service. Just scroll down, you would find redirect HTTP location. So just copy that and then paste it in your callback URL. Okay, so now your logout is successfully configured. Let's save this configuration. Okay, let's test this one, close this and try to see if it retains back. Yes, if that is the case, then your configuration is correct. So click on the debug. Okay, things are working fine. So now let's test this, even logout and see if it is working fine or not. Okay, so go back to your, again, go back to your portal. Let's try to open new session. Just open your open new Cognizant window, close the existing one, and then again hit the logout, the SSO login URL. This is the SSO login URL. Okay, so it is asking for our credentials. That is fine. So copy the test operator ID which we created. So we are able to log in. Good. So now let's try to log out. Okay, there's some issue. Okay, what is it? Call back. Okay, so what I've noticed is, so when the logout request, so the SSO logout doesn't work properly because there is one issue within the configuration which you've done within Pega. So go back to Pega portal. So if you notice here, the CN is in caps. So what you have to do is you have to go here, again click on the down arrow, and if you see, notice that the CN is in, the certificate name is in small letter. Select that and click on save. So let's again try to log in and log out. So use the SSO login URL. Let's use the operator ID. Good, login is successfully working. So let's try to log out. Okay, so logout is working fine. Okay, so probably you might need to understand, okay, what is the SAML token which is sent when you log in and log out and so on. Okay, for this, let's try to click on the Chrome, the three dots on your Chrome, and there is an option developer tool. Click on this developer tool, and then go to your, click on this network and then say preserve logs. Okay, so with this we'll be able to see the request and response which is sent by between the servers. Okay, so clear it and then click on again login. So it's now logging into Pega. Okay, so I'll show you one particular token. So I'll not go each, and there are a lot of HTML, SAML request response which is sent between Pega and the OAuth provider. So let's concentrate more towards So this particular SAML token. Okay, so this is the URL. So if you click on this is the assertion consumer service, so you will be able to find the SAML response token. So copy this entire token, copy it, and in the so you would find a lot of SAML decoder available in the websites. Click on this SSO circle, which I have used and it works fine. Okay, click on this SAML decoder. Okay, so you have to select the post and then click on decode. Okay, so now if you see here, this is the SAML this is our SAML response. This is the token which is sent from the IDP provider to Pega. Okay, so you can view it as an XML. Okay, copied it. Copy this and then say beautify. Okay, so if you see here, so this is there are few things which you have to see. Subject, which is a name identifier, which is the user ID, and there are a lot of other attributes which is sent across. Okay, and there is a signature. This is the this is the signature which is validated when Pega receives this SAML token. It will validate validate this signature using the certificate. So where does this certificate reside? This is the verification certificate. The certificate will be used to verify the signature. Okay, and yeah, that's it. So you can actually see all the SAML tokens by enabling, you can use this developer tools, use this preserve logs to see all the HTML, SAML request response tokens which is exchanged between Pega and the IDP provider. Thank you. If you have any questions, please comment, and all the things which is required, the URL and other details which is required will be provided as part of the YouTube description. Okay. Thank you.